Welcome to Berkshire Family History Presents. We offer information, education, and research assistance for people who are looking to explore their own family history. Genealogy is a complicated but very interesting journey for people who want to look into their past. Today we have with us Nancy McNabb, who is the chair of the very successful and popular book sales from the Friends of the Library in Pittsfield. But Nancy has a very extensive history of doing her own genealogy, so she's going to share that with us today. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Angela. Well, they asked me to talk about how to get started with genealogy. This is going to be an overview. So you need to ask yourself, what do you want to know? Where did your ancestors come from? How did they get here? When did they arrive? Do you still have family back in the old country? Do you want to go back and visit them? You're probably going to think that I'm going to start by saying, go to the local history department at the Athenaeum and talk to the Family History Association. Nope, that's the second place to start. Start at home. Start with what you know. Choose a side. Which side of your family do you want to start with? Your mother, your father, grandparents? That's going to give you 4 surnames to look up. Keep them separate to start, because if you try to do 4 at once, you're not going to get very far. But first, write down what you know. I'm pretty sure you probably know your parents' names, your grandparents' names. Do you know their middle names? Do you know where they were born? When they were born, marriage dates, where they were married. A middle name can be a really good clue as to other relatives' names. Often middle names are the last name of a grandparent, a great-grandparent. Look at the family Bibles. Most family Bibles, old Bibles, in the middle section between the Old Testament and the New Testament was a place to record genealogies. And you can often find a wealth of information there. Funeral home records, guest books. This is my grandfather's. He died in 1949. Going through it, it's amazing how many people came to his funeral, even some famous people. He died in Lake Placid and lived in Lake Placid, so he had occasion to meet many, many different people. You can find some real clues to your family as to who attended the funeral, and there are records. You have to hope that your family were pack rats, because a lot of this stuff, if people move around, gets lost. Address books. When I was doing preparation for this, I got out an address book that my grandmother had done. And I was really surprised. I hadn't seen it before. And I was surprised that she had written down birth dates and death dates of cousins by family. I'm sure this is what motivated my mother to get into research, because all these names I had, and I think that's where my mother started with her mother. But address books can be red herrings. This says Bermuda. My mother never went to Bermuda. I don't know why. Somebody must have given it to her. Maybe you have income tax returns. Maybe you're looking through the attic. What stuff does your family have up there? We found an income tax return of my grandfather. We have no idea why he donated money to the Baptist church. He wasn't Baptist. But sometimes, they can give you clues as to your grandparents. property tax records. That's another great source of information. I've been told that the Athenaeum has got a grant, and they are now digitizing and indexing property tax records for Pittsfield, and I don't know if it's the whole county or just Pittsfield. Another important thing, talk to your living relatives. Aunts, uncles, cousins, great aunts, great uncles. Everybody has different impressions of the family. My great aunt Catherine was close to dying. She was about 95, 96. And I asked her about her grandfather. And she said, the only thing she said to me is he looked like a little monkey. Now, I don't think this man looks like a little monkey, but it's really nice to have pictures of your relatives. He looks perfectly fine to me. But that was her memory because he died when she was a little girl. So to a little girl, he may look like a little monkey. I don't know. But look at the pictures. And another nice thing to do with genealogy is I like brass. I collect brass. I have framed a lot of my ancestors' pictures. And it's okay to crop them. I mean, don't lop off the head of your grandfather, but, you know, crop the picture to fit in a nice frame. And then you'll be looking at them. Look at their stuff. It's a really great way to start a conversation with your grandparents or your aunts or uncles. Look at their dishes, their glasses, their mementos. Ask them, where did they get them? Label, if possible, if they're going to give them to you or you're going to put them back in the case, take a piece of white tape or marking label and write down where it came from. One of the most precious things to me is this. It's from England. It is a picture of Queen Elizabeth when she was 5 years old with her sister and her parents. This my parents found when they were going around to, in Canada, they were going town by town and met relatives, and it's really, really incredible. They met a widower who was a cousin of the direct relative, and he was in World War I, and he had wonderful memories, and he gave my parents all kinds of things because he and his wife sadly didn't have children, so this is one of the treasures. I have many, many more. And it's almost like we gave him a new lease on life. He was so happy to meet family because he was feeling quite alone. When you're ready to get going and do specifics, write down everything you've learned. Construct a family tree. There are objects of the family tree that you can get. I think you probably have them at the Athenaeum.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you probably do. Cemeteries. Oh my goodness. There is Find a Grave that you can do online. And that is very, very helpful. People have done genealogy good deeds by going to cemeteries. My cousin does this as a hobby. And he takes with him grass clippers and all kinds of cleaning supplies. And he is specializing in black cemeteries in Florida. And it's a real genealogy good deed. And he posts the things on Find a Grave. And it's just really a nice thing to do. But if you visit try to visit cemeteries, because it's going to give you a real sense of who is buried with them. They could be in-laws, they could be cousins, they could be children who died as infants that you're not going to find anywhere else. And just look around where they're buried, their stones, and clean them up if you can. That would be a really nice thing to do. Another genealogy good deed. Town halls and county courthouses. Visit, if possible, visit the towns where your relatives lived. Look at probate records, land records, arrest records, lawsuits. And they're often indexed, and you can so you can easily find the name. If that's not possible, especially if your family is across the country or you just don't have time, that's when you go to the Berkshire Atheneum, to the local history department, and talk to the Berkshire Family History Association, who will get you started right there. They have a copy of Ancestry that you can look at. Before you buy Ancestry, you can usually, I think, do about a 10-day trial. But also you can use it for free at the Atheneum, and you can copy pages, and it's very, very user-friendly. And they have so many more records than just on Ancestry. They have all of the records from the archives that were sadly closed down some years ago. And so they have a wealth of information. They have the vital records of all the cities and towns in Massachusetts. They have vital records of Vermont. I believe there are some, many from New York, the black hole of genealogy, as we all know. But anyway, local history also has many family genealogies, and they're all in alphabetical order. They have town books from the surrounding areas, eastern New York. When I was living in North Carolina, I would come up here on vacation and often go to the archives and the Atheneum. And I found in the history of Framingham the proof that I needed to join the descendants of the Mayflower, and right here in Pittsfield. So you never know what you're going to find. When I started doing genealogy, I had no idea that my family, one family member came over on the Mayflower. I was shocked. So it was a very pleasant surprise. So you just don't know what you're going to find. You may think that, gee, your family just came over here in the late 1800s. Well, maybe somebody married somebody at some point who was here in the 1600s. You just don't know. Census records. They're a really great place to start. And some have been, this is the town of Wilmington, New York, where my father's family came from. And they are transcribed and indexed, which is really, really nice. But you can get them online, and they're indexed. Look at not just the federal census, which is every 10 years, but the state census, which are often on the 5 years. And you're going to find very different information in each census. Some asked, can you read and write? Where were you born? Each census is different. And the state census have a lot more things, but I was just reviewing this morning, and it's amazing how much younger my family became in 1855 in New York than in 1850 in the federal census. So you can't necessarily believe even everything in the census, but do a reasonableness test. Of ages, especially if you have someone's death date and the census indicates that they were born after they died. Do a reasonableness test. Also, it helps to know some history. If you're talking to great-grandpa and say, tell me about your family, and he says, well, look at this here rifle I got. This went through the Civil War with my great-grandfather. Say, wow, that's great. When did Grandpa come over? 1880. I don't think he was in the Civil War. So kind of know some dates. I'm not saying memorize dates. You don't want to go back to history class, but just kind of know when things happened. Ship's logs, those are really valuable. When I first started doing research at the archives, again, coming up on vacation, I found so many ships that my ancestors came on. Of course, I was looking up Gigangack, Feigenbaum, and Calvert. The poor lady next to me at her microfilm machine was looking up O'Reilly or whatever. Irish is not easy. It's much easier if you have an unusual name to look up, but also if you know approximately the year that they came over and where they came from. That can really help. You can also find pictures of ships that they came over on. You think, wow, how brave they were to get on that ship. They look like they wouldn't make it up the Hudson River. I mean, it's really incredible what they came over on. What was going on when they immigrated? Why did they come here? wars, famines, pogroms. I found that one of my great-grandfathers came here in 1855 from England. That's a real unusual time to come. Well, in probing things, he married his sister-in-law, no, it wasn't incest, sister-in-law. They were both widowed. Well, the Episcopal Church in England frowned upon that. And that was a no-no for some reason. I thought it would really be nice for a brother-in-law to take care of his sister-in-law. Well, the church so frowned on it that they would consider the children of that marriage bastards. So they didn't want to stay in England, and they came to Canada, and that's how I came to be. I thought originally that my family just kind of wandered in from Canada, and I had no idea that part of the family was in the United States before they went to Canada. So you can really find out a lot of things, and when you look at immigration and why. Military records. I believe the Athenaeum has fold 3, fold 3, and that has a lot of military records. World War I draft cards can be very, very interesting, and that's going to give you the address where they lived, also, and their spouse's name, often their parents, you know. So that is very, very helpful. And I don't think all of the World War II records survived.
No, they didn't, Nancy. Many of them, unfortunately, burned when there was a large depot that was being used for records, and I believe that was in St. Louis. But there are other ways to go in the back door there.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully World War II, there's enough if you scan newspapers, you're going to find a lot of reference to, especially the social type pages back then. When there wasn't so much crime, they could cover nice things, and so they would say when Johnny came home from the war, you know, on leave or whatever, and you can learn a lot about that. Town historical societies. That's another great source of information, and they often have records by family. And they also, these Images of America books, here's Lake Placid, and my grandfather's business is in that, and it's kind of fun to see. And we sell, a lot of people donate these, and we sell them at the book sale, which of course I'm going to plug,
of course.
Our summer book sale.
You should.
Yes, yes, come to our, and we have a genealogy section that if not just Berkshire Family History, but the local history department sometimes gets duplicates of records, or, you know, they update them and they will give them to us, different books, etc. Or people donate, you know, they might have moved here from Ohio. Well, it's not really in their sort of so-called charter to do Ohio, so they might donate them to us. So you never know what you might find for $1 at our book sale, which is July 13th, 14th, and 15th. When you do find things, make sure you cite your source. Where did you find this information? It's going to help you not reinvent the wheel every time you go out on a genealogy hunt. But also, if you have to keep duplicating records, sometimes birth, death, and marriage records are available for very little cost. Not so in New York State. The last time I got something, it was $22, and the only reason I got it quickly was that I went over and took the number off the microfilm so that they could easily find it.
Sure.
I understand it's getting more expensive and more difficult. You don't need a certified copy, usually, of any of these records to join a society. If you want to join something like DAR, SAR, Mayflower, even things like ITAM, Hibernians, whatever, they're going to ask you of proof. Some are easier to get into than others. And you're going to want your birth, death, and marriage certificates to show proof of your lineage. So make sure you keep copies of everything. And it's a whole lot easier if you're doing research to get a roll of dimes, so you can be copying things or quarters, whatever the case may be. And it's genealogy is so much fun. They talk about brick walls, but I'd prefer to think of it as open doors. That you might get stuck, but then you're going to go around that wall, and you're going to go in another direction, or somebody is going to really turn you on. Like, you might find a relative who lived in an unusual place. You might find a living cousin. You're going to be inspired in so many different ways but you have to kind of focus. Don't go in all directions at once, or else you'll get nowhere.
Yeah. Nancy, you make a very valid point. It's very tempting to start, here's Grandpa, here's Grandpa's brother, here's Grandma's sister, and you get very scattered. So you make a very good point there. But I wanted to go back and talk about something you mentioned. The cemetery records, you use the site Find a Grave. I had an extraordinary success finding my great-grandfather's grave up in Orange County, New York. And it came through Find a Grave. So I just wanted to comment that it is an extraordinarily useful site. So continue, Nancy.
And also, some cemeteries, sadly, have fallen into disrepair. And of course, the weather in the Northeast isn't really great for preserving tombstones. But many societies, family history societies, historical societies do have records of all the graves in a cemetery. And I have found mention of some graves up in Plattsburgh area that are no longer exist. I'm sure they just melted away, but yet they have the records that you're not going to find something like that on Find a Grave because the gravestone doesn't exist. Even things more modern, trees grow up, or vandalism, whatever.
Sure.
And those people ought to serve time in jail that vandalize cemeteries. But anyway, there's just so much. But genealogy is more than just statistics of birth, death, and marriages, or how far back you can go. I mean, it's really fun to say, I can go back to William the Conqueror. Yeah, I'm sure you can. I take some of that with a grain of salt, unless you have proof. Anyway, it's nice to say, if someone tells me that, I say, oh, that's great. Wonderful. But it's about bringing your ancestors alive. It's knowing what they did. What were their hobbies? Where did they go on vacation? Who were their friends? What were their hobbies? I can remember my grandparents playing pinochle at the dining room table. That's back before the internet, when people actually talked to each other and visited, dropped in on each other. What makes your ancestors special? What about anecdotes? Funny stories. I was told that my grandmother was one of the first female drivers in New York State. And a family story corroborates that she went out and took driving lessons without telling my grandfather. And she bought herself a car. I don't know where she had the money, because back in the 1920s, women didn't have money. I think her family had money. No income. They owned a business. And she drove home and surprised him. And
oh, that's marvelous.
So it's just a wonderful, wonderful story about families. And so it's. And I'm quoting from, you used to have conferences called Life in the Past Lane. And so it's really fun to live life in the past lane.
Yes, it is, Nancy.
And I just hope we can inspire people to dig into their family history. So many people wait until they're retired when they have time to do this. I'm so grateful that my mother started and my father started doing this before they retired. They took vacations. They took genealogy vacations. They talked to people that were still alive to give them clues. I still have many brick walls. I have circumstantial evidence. But I've had many successes too.
Yes.
So just keep at it and share it with your children and grandchildren and enjoy it. It's a great hobby. You might have to set a budget. Because travel can be expensive. It's fun to join societies, but they're not cheap. There are many, many societies to join, just too numerous. I mean, they're the main ones, but there are a lot of obscure societies. The Children of Salem Witches. I qualify for that, by the way.
Oh,
Susanna North Martin. But
Nancy,
anyway, it's
I just
really
wanted
fun.
to ask you a question. When you're doing research, do you find that over the years, names were changed, especially immigrants who came here with their birth name, and once arriving here and successfully living here, did you find that looking for them under the name you know them for, is not the name that they were born with? Have you had that experience?
Yes. There is a myth that names were changed at Ellis Island or at Castle Garden, but really the names on the ship's logs were recorded when they left Europe, in Europe. But yes, my family who came over here in 1861 from Germany, my ancestor was named Feigenbaum, and he came over with his two sisters. One had married someone named Golz, G-O-L-Z, and the other one married someone named Kramer, spelled K-R-A-M-E-R. Well, I found them in Stuyvesant, New York, and I went to Hudson, to the county courthouse, to look up the census records. Feigenbaum stayed the same, but Kramer became Kramer with a C, and Golz, G-O-L-Z, became G-O-L-T-Z. Now, we have reason to believe that they were probably Jewish. Talking about archives, I found wine glasses with the Star of David on it in my grandmother's house.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, this is so informative, and you opened up so many doors for people to explore. This has been a wonderful program with Nancy, and we invite all of you to come to the Pittsfield Library Local History Department and start your wonderful journey. Thank you for listening and watching today. Watch ahead for our next new program.